Hello everyone, welcome back to Evoverse. This time Evoverse will recap the movie from 2015 entitled The Exorcist of Molly Hartley. This movie tells the story of a woman named Molly who gets disturbances by the devil. Over time Molly began to turn into something more violent due to possession by the devil. A former priest named John tried to save Molly, but unexpected things happened when he tried to exorcise the demon inside Molly's body. How is the next story? Let's review the recaps of this movie, and we remind you all what we will say this is a spoiler. For those of you who don't have a problem with spoilers, let's continue the story and enjoy. At the beginning of the movie, we are shown a priest named John and also a priest named James performing an exorcism ritual on a pregnant woman. While exorcising the demon tries to seduce Father John so that he wants to open all the ropes that bind his hands and feet. These seductions released by the demon made Father John immediately open the ropes that were on the woman's feet. Father James then tried to stop Father John's actions, but it was too late. When the demon wanted to attack John, Father James tried to stop it, and accidentally Father James fell from the second floor along with the woman. John, who saw the death of his colleague, became very guilty because he had opened the rope. When the husband of the woman entered the room, he then felt very sad when he saw his dead wife. After the terrible events that happened to him, John then took the initiative to go to the Catholic mental hospital to calm down and serve there. When he got there, a priest named Davis gave John the news that he had been dismissed as a priest. Father Davis also told John that because he was old, he planned to retire as a priest and would live his days at home alone. The scene changes, showing a woman named Molly Hartley is shown celebrating her birthday at a club. Molly is seen starting to have fun until she herself gets drunk and then has sex with a couple she met at the club earlier. In the morning when she woke up from her sleep, Molly saw two policemen who came to her house because she got a complaint from her neighbor. The police said to Molly that the neighbor complained about the noise made by Molly last night. The two policemen then immediately entered Molly's house to check all the rooms in that place. One of the policemen was then very surprised when he saw a couple who had died covered in blood in Molly's bathroom. The policemen immediately handcuffed Molly's hands because they thought that Molly was the perpetrator of the murder. Molly suddenly began to feel something strange because she seemed to hear voices that the police could not hear. Quickly Molly was then taken by the police to immediately undergo an examination because she was considered crazy. Molly was taken to the Catholic mental hospital in the same place as Father John. Arriving there, a receptionist named Janet was very surprised when she saw Molly's face suddenly change. Janet then felt worried and immediately told one of the hospital employees to take Molly into the treatment room. While Molly was sleeping, suddenly there was an insect entered her nose. After that Molly then felt that something strange was happening in her own body. In the morning, Molly was visited by a doctor named Laurie, who would evaluate all the behavior of Molly. When Laurie was in Molly's room, suddenly the document she was carrying was bounced by an invisible figure. Laurie, who felt a little scared, then rushed away from Molly's room. Because she was curious, Laurie immediately looked for Molly's data and about the history of diseases that Molly had suffered. The next day, Laurie returned to visit Molly's room, but Molly gave a very strange response to her. Suddenly Molly spewed a strange liquid from her mouth and hit her whole body of Laurie. In the evening, Laurie was very surprised when all the patients in the hospital suddenly began to bang their heads against the walls of their rooms. Molly was also seen banging her head on the wall, and immediately Laurie tried to stop Molly. Because Molly tried to hurt herself, she had to be put in a special room. Laurie also began to look at Molly's past records and found that the symptoms experienced by Molly occurred on her 18th birthday. Where initially Molly was an ordinary child suddenly turned into a very smart child. Molly felt that she found something strange when she was 18 years old. She claimed to have been possessed and began to feel that she was pregnant. And now at the age of 24, Molly also feels the same thing that happened on her 18th birthday. Laurie also asked why this could happen at the age of 18 and also 24. Molly replied that it was a code that she would give birth at the 6th year, 6 months, 6 days, 6 hours, and also the 66th minute. The number 66 is synonymous with devil worship, and Laurie, who realized this, believed that Molly was being possessed by the devil. Because Molly continued to rebel and began to attack Laurie with force, Molly was then tied up so that she could not move. Laurie began to look for more information and found a man named John who was a former priest. Laurie then asked John for help in carrying out the exorcism of the demon that had possessed Molly. Because he remembered his past, John chose to refuse and would not carry out the exorcism again. Not long after, Janet committed suicide for no apparent reason by jumping from the third-floor window of the mental hospital. After Janet's death, John finally agreed to help Lori exorcise the demon inside Molly's body. But before that, John wanted to see the state of Molly, and it turned out that the demon knew that John had failed to perform an exorcism. Because he didn't want to fail again, John decided to go to Father Davis's house and ask permission to perform another exorcism. But before that, Father Davis gave John an outfit and an exorcism tool that could be used against the demon inside Molly's body. After being given the equipment by Father Davis, John then immediately performed the exorcism of the demon in Molly's body. But it seems that because the demon is very strong, making John's hand is bitten by the demon. A few moments later, John saw some letters that appeared on Molly's forehead that read LVTYN. Because he found it difficult to expel the demon, John decided to take a short break. Then John came back to Molly's room to continue the exorcism, but this time the demon became very angry and made a mess of all John's belongings. John felt unsure of his abilities. But Lori always supported John, which made John rise again to continue the exorcism. Before continuing the exorcism again, John came back to Davis's house to ask for an item that could be used to defeat the demon. In the end, Davis gave an object shaped like a house to help John exorcise the demon that was in Molly's body. While reading the prayers, suddenly Molly flew up and let out a lot of insects from her mouth. At the same time, John immediately opened the object given by Davis, which made the insects immediately enter the object. After that, John then put the object into the holy water that he had prepared. Here Molly is free from the demon and feels very grateful to John, who has expelled the demon from her body. When he wanted to leave the room, strangely all the patients and hospital employees looked at John with very strange gazes. Without suspecting anything, John immediately brought the object to be returned to Father Davis. While at Father Davis' house, John accidentally saw a book that looked like a demon book. It made John feel very confused and thought that Davis was a devil worshipper. When asked by John, Davis tried to explain that the book was Leviathan, or abbreviated to LVTYN. John remembers that on Molly's forehead, there was an inscription like that. Davis explained that the strongest demon figure would be born from inside Molly's body, because previously Molly had committed a great sin. After hearing this, John planned to check the object again to make sure that the demon was really there. When opened, it turned out that the object had disappeared. And at the same time, Davis hit John until he fainted. Meanwhile, at the mental hospital, Molly saw another person beside her unconscious. Moments later, Molly's head was held in plastic by mental hospital employees and taken to a room inside the hospital. It turns out that Molly was taken to a place where there was Father Davis, who wore a devil worshipper costume. On the other hand, John, who woke up, was in a mental hospital room and could not get out because the door was locked from the outside. He saw clearly that all the patients in the hospital committed suicide by drinking poison. At the same time, one of the employees also brought John to the same place as Molly. Outside the hospital, Lori was seen returning to her office to pick up the cell phone that she had left behind. Lori was then surprised by one of the employees who had strange movements. Because he felt something was strange, Lori took a pair of scissors just in case. After that, Lori was shocked to see all the patients who had died in a terrible way. At the same time, the employee then grabbed Lori's head and was going to take him to Molly's place to witness the birth of the strongest demon. Lori was forced to stab the employee in the head. When she wanted to leave, Lori saw clearly that John was also taken by one of the hospital employees to Molly's place. Seeing that, Lori immediately called the police and followed where the employee had taken John. When John arrived at Davis's place, Davis explained that today was the birth of the devil, where the time showed 6 years, 6 months, 6 days, 6 hours, and 66 minutes. Davis immediately subdued Molly so that the strongest demon could rise immediately. John then tried to stop Davis's actions, but his efforts were in vain. The people who were there were all hypnotized to witness the birth of the strongest demon. But fortunately, at the same time, Lori came quietly and stabbed Davis in the back. The object immediately released a lot of insects, and the insects entered Davis's body. The three of them immediately left the place, but one of the employees tried to chase them. He pointed a gun and was going to shoot Molly. But fortunately, the police arrived on time and immediately shot the hospital employee to death. The police entered the underground room, where there were several insects that managed to escape through a tunnel. After that, the police immediately checked Davis's house and found a large list of people who participated in Satan worship. Then John assures Molly that she is now safe from the demon. Elsewhere, one of the escaped insects flies to a school bus and begins to approach one of the girls on the bus, and the movie is over. The movie as a whole, in our opinion, is not as scary as other exorcism movies, although it tells a pretty interesting story in general. This movie feels bland and even looks funny. Regardless, we still recommend this movie for you to watch if you really like horror movies with the theme of exorcism. Okay guys, so that's the Exorcism of Molly Hartley movie recap. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and see you in the next movie recap.